I met Priya when I was 6 years old, in a sandbox at Lincoln Elementary, fighting her over a plastic shovel. By the time we were 7, we were blood sisters with a safety pin and a promise. By the time we were 17, she knew things about me nobody else did. The abortion I never told my mother about, the year I stopped eating, the fact that I used to steal $20 bills from my stepfather's wallet just to feel like I had some control over something. I knew things about her too. That's what 20 years does. It doesn't just build trust, it builds a kind of shared nervous system. My name is Renee. I'm 31 now, and for most of my adult life, I worked 2 jobs: days at a dental office doing billing, nights waiting tables at a steakhouse downtown, because I was saving for a house, not a fancy one, just something with a yard, something that was mine, something my mother never had. I kept a spreadsheet. I kept receipts. I ate a lot of rice and beans and told myself it was temporary. Priya, meanwhile, had what I used to call, affectionately, main character energy. She didn't work steadily. She hopped between jobs, between boyfriends, between apartments she always described as just for now. I never judged her for it. Not really. I loved her. You don't audit the people you love. That was my first mistake. Though I wouldn't understand that word, mistake, for a long time. Because trust doesn't feel like a mistake while you're inside it. It feels like the safest thing in the world. The first sign came 18 months ago, and it was small enough that I almost missed it. I was denied a store credit card at a furniture shop, something I'd applied for on a whim, to finally buy a real couch instead of the one I'd had since college. The denial letter cited excessive existing debt relative to income. I remember laughing, actually laughing, because I had no debt. I'd been aggressively debt-free for years. I assumed it was a clerical error. It wasn't. I pulled my credit report that night, sitting at my kitchen table with a glass of wine I never touched because my hands were shaking too hard to lift it. There were 4 credit cards I had never opened: a personal loan for $14,000, a finance luxury handbag, the kind that costs more than my car, under a payment plan, an auto loan for a car I had never seen, in a city I'd never lived in, nearly $38,000 in debt, accumulated over roughly 2 years. All of it tied to my social security number, my name, my signature. A signature that, when I compared it to my own, was close enough to fool a bank teller and nowhere close enough to be mine. I want to tell you that I suspected Priya immediately. I didn't. That's the part that still makes my chest tight when I think about it. My first thought was a stranger. Identity theft in the way you see on the news. Some faceless criminal, a data breach, a stolen wallet. It took me 3 weeks of pulling records, calling banks, and requesting documentation before one of the account applications came back with a listed employer. The steakhouse where Priya had waitressed for exactly 4 months, 2 years earlier, using my employment history because she didn't have steady work of her own to list. I sat with that piece of paper for a long time. Then I did what I do, what 20 years of managing chaos in other people's lives had trained me to do. I didn't call her. I didn't cry, at least not where anyone could see me. I built a file. Over the next 2 months, I filed formal identity theft reports with the FTC and my local police department. I requested every document the creditors had, signed applications, delivery addresses, in some cases photographs from in-store financing kiosks where a woman who was not me, but who had access to enough of my information to pass surface-level checks, had opened accounts in my name. The delivery address on the handbag order was Priya's apartment. The phone number listed on 2 of the credit applications was Priya's number, 1 digit changed. She hadn't even been careful. I think, somewhere underneath it, she never expected me to look. She expected me to trust her. She'd been right about that for 20 years. That's what made it work. I confronted her exactly once, and only after I had every document I needed, because I'd learned by then that confrontation without proof just gives people room to gaslight you into doubting your own memory. I sat across from her in her apartment, the apartment furnished, I now understood, in part with money that should have gone toward my future. And I laid the documents on her coffee table one at a time. She cried. She said she'd always meant to pay it back. She said she was going to tell me when things got better. She said, and I remember this specifically because it was the moment something in me finally, fully closed. You have such a good job. I knew you could handle it if something went wrong. I didn't yell. I didn't hit her. though I understood in that moment why people sometimes do. I stood up, picked up my documents, and said, "You didn't just steal money. You used the parts of me you knew because you loved me, my patience, my trust, the fact that I'd rather believe the best about you than protect myself. That's not a mistake. That's a choice you made over and over for 2 years." Then I left, and I have not spoken to her since. Here's the part revenge stories don't usually tell you. The law moved slowly, and it moved imperfectly. I filed a police report, and because I had overwhelming documentation, signatures, delivery addresses, phone numbers, even a security camera photo from the financing kiosk that clearly wasn't me, she was eventually charged with identity theft and fraud. It took 14 months. In the meantime, I spent countless hours on the phone with the Federal Trade Commission, credit bureaus, and collections agencies, disputing every fraudulent account with a paper trail so thorough that most of it was eventually removed from my credit report. Though not before it cost me a mortgage pre-approval I'd been counting on, and not before 2 years of stress I will never fully get back. The justice, when it came, wasn't cinematic. There was no dramatic courtroom scene, no tearful public confession. There was a plea deal, a restitution order she is still, slowly paying off, and a criminal record that will follow her for the rest of her life. My credit recovered, eventually, through sheer administrative persistence, dispute letters, police report numbers, months of documentation nobody wants to do, but everybody who's been through this learns to do anyway. What I actually got, in the end, wasn't revenge in the way I once imagined it. Some moment where she finally understood what she'd cost me. What I got was clarity. I stopped explaining her behavior to myself with the word, but. I stopped auditing my own trust and started auditing hers instead. 20 years too late, but not too late for the rest of my life. I bought the house, eventually. 2 years later than planned, with a credit report that took real work to rebuild. It has a yard. I sit in it most evenings, and some nights I still think about the safety pin, the blood sister promise, the two little girls fighting over a plastic shovel, who had no idea that one of them would spend 20 years loving someone who saw her patience not as a gift, but as a resource to be spent. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel storyforyou.12345 for more.